So here we go, 10 o'clock. Hey everybody, thanks for tuning in. I'm really happy to be here. This is my second broadcast, and hopefully, as you can see, that this is not blurred. So I'm really happy about that. I'm using my phone now. So I am just going to get started. Cindy just got on. Oh no, David Bailey David, how are you? I haven't talked to you in a long time. So anyway, I'm going to get started. But what I want to talk about today is give a light overview on something that could help you with almost any issue you have with your health. You know, last week I talked a little bit about, before my video went completely crazy, about adding 10 servings of vegetables to your diet. Now, why is that important? Well, it's important because it adds an incredible amount of nutrition and fiber to your diet. It's also important because it crowds out a lot of really bad food that that you're going to that you would otherwise be putting into your diet. That's probably more important than the level of quality of the green food. You don't realize it's really what you don't do that influences your health, maybe even as much as what you do. So putting those 10 servings of green vegetables into your diet is an amazing step toward what I'm going to be talking about right now. All right? So basically, and what that is that the root cause of almost all disease is too much sugar. And I'm not talking about too much sugar in your diet. I'm talking about too much sugar in your system. Now that could be caused by too much refined sugar. It could be caused by, processed sugar. Could just be caused by too much processed food that turns to sugar. But the reality is, whatever it is, even if it's dairy products, which tend to turn to sugar quite easily, especially if you're allergic to it, all those things could put you into a position of what they call insulin resistance. Right? This is the step before diabetes, before type 2 diabetes. And if you can avoid that, that is the trigger for almost every chronic illness. You know, they talk about this in the news all the time, inflammation. Inflammation is huge. It's a part of every chronic disease. But what is the trigger to that? The trigger to that is often insulin resistance. And I'll get into that in a little bit about exactly how that triggers that. But no matter what you want to look at with a chronic disease, you always have to go back to what is the basic thing that's driving all of this, and what is the one thing that the average person can do on their own to get out of that situation. And this is what I want to emphasize. You know, it's great to talk about things and educate people on different topics, but unless you can connect with them and let them know that they can be empowered to do it themselves, then it's really just a waste of time. It's just me talking and listening to myself talk and having some friends on Facebook. So, which is fun too. But the reality is, if you can learn what your blood sugar is every day, how to regulate it in your meals, and then get to a point where you're in a zone where your blood sugar isn't influencing your day-to-day health, your whole body starts to go into a different phase of action, and it starts to clear up all its issues, and you're removing the main inflammatory chemical that drives everything. You know, I had great experience with this. You remember I talked about having cancer, and one of the things that I did besides the ketogenic diet, and then I did an herb program, which I came up with myself because I'm an herbalist, and then one of the main things I worked on in that herb program, though, besides herbs that kill cancer stem cells, herbs that kill circulating tumor cells, but all the herbs got rid of the main inflammatory marker that drives cancer cells. It's the main inflammatory marker in your body that drives everything. One of the ways you eliminate that is not only through the herbs you take, but a big part of my program was lowering my blood sugar. I know pre-cancer, I was right up in the 105, 100 range, which is insulin resistance. Never paid attention to it. I didn't have any real health issues that I was worried about. I didn't know I was in that zone. I adopted a different diet. There was a lot of times during my own treatment that I came up with that my blood sugar was in the 60s. In fact, yesterday I took my blood sugar and my blood sugar was 62. Now that's abnormally low for the average person, but you have to realize I'm in ketosis, which means my metabolism no longer is dependent on sugar, it's dependent on fat. So because my body has an alternative thing to run on, I don't feel bad at that level. I would never suggest that to the average person. If you could get into the 90, around 90, you're doing really good. If you can get around 85 or 80 every day, which is something that's not that hard to do if you regulate your diet, you're going to feel great, and your body goes into a healing mode that's just unbelievable. You know, this is the thing that cracks me up about, doesn't crack me up, but well, kind of. You know, you look at what's happening health-wise in this country. You look at type 2 diabetes. You know, if you follow the statistics and they keep going the exact way they're going now, by the time I leave the planet, say 20, 30 years from now, I might be the only person in the country that doesn't have type 2 diabetes. That's how bad the statistics are. Now, I know it's not going to go that bad, but you know what? That's a crime. That's a failure of the entire health. It's just a failure of our whole system, the health system, to allow that to happen, because it's a manageable thing. It's something that people can do on their own if you educate them and tell them about it. It's kind of what this call's about. So really, your body is insulin resistant, meaning it's lost its ability to deal with the level of sugar in your body, and your cells no longer react to that. So what's going on in your system is that you now have too much sugar circulating all around your body. You have too much insulin because it's still coming out trying to get rid of it. So you have too much insulin. Both of them drive inflammation. So now you're driving the inflammatory markers that cause cancer cells to replicate. And you're driving the inflammatory markers that create the type of damage that damages all your cells, damages your DNA, and then you add something into that, like pesticides, too much emotional stress. All these things produce their own chemical that adds to the mix, and there you have it. You're in a position to experience all these things. So let's say maybe you have high blood pressure. Your blood pressure's up to 140, over 90. You have the beginnings of hypertension, right? Let's say maybe you just have pain in your joints, chronic arthritis. Or maybe you have the beginnings of heart disease. You're building up plaque in your system. Your circulation is not the greatest, and you have some other issues going on with your cholesterol and all these different issues. Or maybe your memory's off and you get a little foggy in your brain at certain times of the day, or it seems like you can't pay attention. All those things really have the same cause. And the same cause is insulin resistance. The same cause is too much sugar. And you have to turn that around. And so I gave you the first step the other day, 10 servings of green vegetables. This can be different. The program for this can be different for everybody, but the best way to start without having any knowledge of where you're at or any knowledge about exactly what you're doing is to right away get rid of all food out of your diet that's not natural food. In other words, you're eating vegetables mostly. You're eating nothing that's processed. You're not eating crackers. You're not, eating bread all the time, pasta. You're eating some protein source. You're having a lot of vegetables, and that becomes your diet. It's almost what they call paleo, which is going back to the ancestral diet. Basically, very little grain, mostly vegetables, good fats, avocados, coconut oil, olive oil, nuts, raw nuts in particular, all these different things that actually have fiber, antioxidants, they all take a while to digest. They don't digest real quickly. They move through your system slowly. And over time, your blood sugar starts to regulate itself. The nutrients in your food will deal with the inflammation. You can add certain herbs, nutrients to that if you want, but the basic key element is always going to be your diet. You have to remember this about nutrients. Nutrients are a bonus. They're not the core thing that you're going to be doing for any program. Basically, it comes down to your diet. So you start this process. You might find there's certain foods that just trigger your blood sugar. I was reading a great concept in a book called Wired. Wired was written by Rob Wolf. You might not be familiar with him, but he's kind of the guy that kicked off the whole paleo movement. He was the guy that wrote the first book on it. I particularly enjoyed that because he's also got a really strange sense of humor just like me, right? So he makes these comments throughout his book that crack me up, so I liked it. But he has great information. In fact, the whole paleo movement has a lot of great information about food. And people are so mistaken about it. They think it's all about eating tons of meat, eating tons of fat. No, it's basically just about finding a natural food diet that works for you. And it can vary just like any other diet. There's all kinds of variances of it. So anyway, he wrote this great thing in his book Wired, which was about the fact that he started testing almost all the food that he ate. And he found that a lot of foods that he would eat never changed his blood sugar by more than 10 points. And these were foods that other people would eat and it'd go up 60, 70 points and they really shouldn't be on it. Did nothing to him. But if he ate a certain food that didn't affect other people, his blood sugar might just go out the roof. So he just eliminated them. And so, a lot of us won't go to that much effort, but really what he's pointing out is that we all have our own unique reaction to things and our own unique metabolism. And you have to, if you're having a chronic health issue, you have to look into that and maybe go out and get a meter and measure your blood and go through this 1 month process of testing your food. It might seem odd, but again, think about it. You're facing a chronic disease. Most people with a chronic disease in this country end up on medication for 30 to 40 years. So is it worth your time? Think about that. And it's not very hard to do. I ended up buying one of these little meters. It's called a Precision Extra, and I will admit I bought it at Walmart. It was the only place I could get it real cheap. And it cost me like $18. And when I had my cancer program, I would test my blood sugar and ketones 3 times a day. And it's real easy once you get into it, and there's really not much to it. And so, but I learned so much about my food and about my diet and about my whole program just from that simple exercise of doing that. And so anybody can do that, especially if they're faced with a chronic illness. But again, what should you do at first? You should look at changing your diet right now. And for a lot of people, this is one of the things that's the hardest for them, and that is just give up grains. Give up grains for a month. Think you can do that? I think you can if you're really interested in your health. And this is a big turning point for almost everyone, is that we grow up eating so much bread, so much grain, so many different things that we grow up doing that we sometimes just can't, because of habit and addiction, yeah, it is an addiction, get rid of those types of foods. So if you're able to do that, you are an amazing human being, let me tell you. And for some people, that kind of spurs them on, The reality is that it's hard to do, and it's hard to do because you're addicted to it, and you're addicted to the sugar feeling you actually get from it. But that's a topic for another talk, because we all have our addictions, and a lot of them are related to food, and a lot of them are related to sugars. So I'm going to try tapping here and see if this brings questions up. Bear with me. Nah, that didn't work. That didn't work. So how do I get out of this? Hey, wow, I learned something. Anyway, so basically, if you're having blood sugar issues, and the reason I want you to stop all grains is because right away your blood sugar will start to drop. It doesn't mean that you don't eat them for the rest of your life. It just means that at this moment your body's not handling really well, and you're going to change your metabolism a little bit, so when you add them back in, you're in a different state of health and you don't have the same reaction to them. That's what you're doing. You're not giving up everything altogether. You're changing your metabolism and your body's reaction. Because anybody that has elevated blood sugar has to go through a phase to where they not only reduce the amount of sugar that's circulating through their system, but they cause their cells to dump some of their stored fuel, which is a fatty acid. You know, your body turns your glucose into a type of fatty acid, stores it in your cells. So if you eat a little less food, which you're going to be already, if you're filling up on vegetables, you're actually going to be on a lower calorie diet, and you'll probably lose 5 or 6 pounds in the first month easily, eating all you want. I'm not asking you to count calories. I'm just saying get rid of grains, eat as much whole natural food as you want, and don't eat excessive protein. Have a piece of protein with a meal, but just don't go crazy on it. Fill up on veggies. And what will happen is your body will slowly start to dump its content from your cells, and then you're no longer insulin resistant. And then you can start playing with other foods, and when you add them back in, just see how you feel. If you don't feel really good when you eat a certain food, or your eyes get fuzzy, then you know you're slightly allergic to it, and you know that you're not going to get back into that. You're not going to be dealing with that, and maybe it's something that you eliminate. You know, one of the other things you have to deal with your stress is dealing with your blood sugar, is dealing with stress. This was a big issue. Like right now, you can probably hear that my yard workers showed up and they're cleaning my yard and they're using the blower, and I have no control over that. And normally that would be very stressful for me because I'm live on camera, but the reality is that I'm a cancer survivor and I've given up on perfect. So it's not going to be perfect today, and I don't care. So, but the reality is that if you deal with your stress, then it'll be easier to deal with your blood sugar. Now this is a strange situation because your blood sugar being elevated is actually causing your body to be in a slightly stress response level. And in that stress response level, that agitation that you're having, you cannot get rid of the blood sugar in your system because your body thinks you're getting prepared for fight or flight. Because that's happening, you're never going to actually fully get rid of the amount of blood sugar in your system. Imagine you woke up and you don't like going to work. That's already a kind of a stress response. You go out in the kitchen, you burn your toast. Oh, you're kind of bummed about that. You have a cup of coffee with sugar in it, some jam, a little bit of orange juice. You just had a sugar bomb and you're stressed out. So now your blood sugar's probably gone up 50, 60 points. You can't clear it out because you're stressed, and now you're stuck in traffic, so you're more stressed. All the researchers who look at blood sugar levels on the ketogenic diet, there's a lot of information out there about that, but they all admit the highest their blood sugar ever is when they get out of the car after driving to work. They get stuck in traffic, they have a stress response, their blood sugar is 20 points higher than normal. It takes a while being in the office, getting into their routine for it to come back down. So you don't want to be adding to that with your diet. I remember, and a lot of you probably met me through my lectures I used to give all around the country for a MLM company. And one of the topics I got into, because they came out with a protein product, was how to best use that in their diet. And I gave them this tip. I'm going to wrap my talk up today so I don't go too in depth or too much information. But what I told them was, you take that product, which was mostly protein, no carbs, 5 or so grams of fat. Have that in the morning with nothing else, right? And why is that important? Because that's a pure protein food. And in the morning, your brain likes to make dopamine. Dopamine is the main neurotransmitter that runs or powers up your brain. Now, if you do that first thing in the morning, it's also the main neurotransmitter that shuts off your cravings for sugar. So after about 6 or 7 days of doing this and having nothing with that drink, you lose your cravings for sugar. Now, in the first few days, you do have to make a commitment. Whatever it is, you're having a chicken breast, you're having whatever it is, you're just having that. You can have fat along with it, no carbs, right? Once you do that and your brain starts to change, your next meal, you can eat a little protein, all the vegetables you want, but still don't add any carb to it. If you can do that for a week, you'll be over your sugar cravings. Your brain will be more alert than it's ever been, and you will feel different, and you'll feel empowered to move on and change your life. You know, I got calls from people that ended up doing that for a few months, lost 40 pounds, and never been able to lose weight since they were in grade school. My favorite call was I got a call from a woman whose husband lost 30 pounds, went off 6 different medications for blood pressure and diabetes in 30 days, after 30 days of doing this. Now, even more amazing than that was that he listened to my lecture on a CD twice a day for 30 days. I couldn't do that. But he was driving to work and he was coming home. He listened to it, so he knew every single word of it, and he followed it. And at the end of 30 days, he didn't need any medication for either one of those illnesses. Now, how could that possibly happen? Well, I'll tell you, because his body no longer produced excessive sugar. And this is the thing with a lot of chronic illnesses, but especially type 2 diabetes. A large majority of those people don't have an illness. What they have is their body's natural reaction to the food they're putting in it. Your body can adapt to anything, but in that process, it develops certain imbalances because that's the way it can only function on what you're giving it. So he changed what he was giving it, and it turns out he probably didn't really have diabetes or hypertension. That was the way his body expressed all the inflammation and the excessive sugar that he put into it all day long. He created the situation himself. It didn't show up because of his genetics or because of, who he was. It didn't just show up out of the blue and he had to be on medication the rest of his life. He learned that it was just a reaction to his diet. He changed his diet and he was off everything. Now that's an amazing story. Why? Not because he got rid of those things, but because he actually did it. He felt empowered and he moved forward, took control, and got rid of his thing. And a lot of people right in the beginning, when you try to do these things, you'll feel overwhelmed. I felt overwhelmed when I started my cancer program. People feel overwhelmed. Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. It's too much. It's, sugar. Let me tell you what's happening when you think that way. The reason you're actually thinking that way is because of 2 things. 1, you're hooked on sugar, and that's just where your brain's going. 2, you're too stressed. When someone tells me right up front that, oh, I can't do that, it's too hard, I know that their level of stress is really high. And why is that? Because your brain drops down into stress response. And when you do that, you lose your executive function, meaning that you lose your ability to make conscious decisions that are good for you in the moment. All you can see is the bad things that are going to happen to you and the suffering that you're going to go through because you're stuck in a stress response. And you add sugar to that. The sugar helps you stay stuck in the stress response. You have to de-stress, move back up into what I call the frontal lobe of the brain, the higher thinking, and start making decisions. I know this for a fact. I talk about stress all the time. I make stress products at HerbWorks.com. This is what I do for a living. But when I got cancer, I fell right into the dread of, oh my God, what am I going to do? Went right down into stress response. And while I'm sitting there, I was thinking, This is exactly what I talk about all the time. I know where I'm sitting in my own mind, in my own brain, and yet I was stuck in this doom. And then I took some herbs for stress, and believe me, my whole life changed in about a matter of 1 to 3 days. I just started to lighten up immediately, and all of a sudden I got involved, started making decisions, changed the whole program. Once I got on the herbs, changed my diet, I was done with my cancer in 5 weeks. Think about that. Everybody thinks it's a miracle, but maybe it is. But really, it was just getting empowered to go out and try and change something. And everybody can do this. Just like the guy with the diabetes, changed his diet, changed his reaction, went into something else. Just like me, I got caught up in how tough it would be, how hard it would be to do that. All of a sudden, boom, I made a decision because I wasn't as stressed. I attacked it and got rid of it. You can all do this. You can all feel empowered to do this, but to start the process now, start eating 10 servings of green vegetables a day. Start finding out what your resting blood sugar is. If you have to go to a doctor, do that. If you want to just buy a meter, it's just as easy and just as and much cheaper to do it on a daily basis yourself. Find that out. Go ahead and do it. You can buy meters anywhere, right? But start the process of finding out what your blood sugar is, changing your diet, and start making these steps or taking these steps to get into a different position of health. And believe me, if you can do this, if you can master this root cause of everything, which is blood sugar issues, you'll notice in a process, and it'll begin within at least 6 weeks, you'll notice that if you have a chronic disease, it's less. If as time goes by, it might disappear. And why is that? Because your body, and this is something you must remember at all times, every cell in your body is programmed to move toward its highest state of health at all times. The only thing that interferes with that is your emotions and what you put into your body. So if you change what you put into your body, down the road, that'll even influence your emotions because your stress will change. Everything will change as you go along if you make the decision to take this small step. 6 months from now, you might totally eliminate a chronic disease. I've listened to testimonials about people getting over MS. MS is huge. They did it by changing their diet and taking a few supplements. They got rid of all the inflammation, all the things they were allergic to, and then their body just was able to take its life force and concentrate on moving toward a state of health and vibrancy. That's what your body's doing at every single moment. It's always, that old saying in some of the New Age books, moving toward the light. Your cells are always moving toward the highest vibrational position that they can possibly get in if you allow them to do it. And you have a symbiotic relationship with whole food. Change your diet, change your life, and move forward with it. I'm going to stop now. I am going to apologize right now because I have not figured out how on my phone to get your questions so I can answer them right now. But if you sent me some, when I pop on for my next live broadcast, I will answer some of your questions on that. Hopefully, by the next time I'm on, I will figure out where those questions are coming up. I had this great idea that it was going to be on my computer, but my computer's not pulling up my live feed. So, what can I say? I'm technologically challenged, but I'm going to keep going with this, and we're going to work it out, and we're going to have some great sessions. I want to thank you for tuning in and being part of this. Tell your friends. If you want more information, everybody knows I'm a formulator and owner of HerbWorks.com. I have a blog on that website. If you want to go to my blog at HerbWorks.com, just go there and you can see some of my articles. This live feed will be posted on Facebook. You can send your friends there. But keep in touch, send me questions, and we'll do this again soon. Thank you.